Hey, what is happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? Rules for Rebels back at you with episode 34 of Side Hustle Tuesdays. So, today's story is going to be talking about a couple guys who started a business which was centered around and catered to men with long hair. Something that I can definitely relate to. And you may have heard about these guys before. I think they may have been featured on like Shark Tank or something like that before, or you may have seen their blog or their YouTube channel. They're pretty active with content marketing, which is pretty cool. Today, we're basically going to be talking about creating a business around a group of people with a shared interest or a group of people who we might call a tribe. Now, going back to Shark Tank, if you watch Shark Tank, you'll often hear Mark Cuban and others talking about finding your tribe, basically finding who your business is geared towards, who's going to relate to your products, etc. So, in earlier episodes, we talked about the personal finance workshop for queer anti capitalists, which was kind of meant to appeal to people outside of the mainstream who may not really get into personal finance or who may not really relate to somebody like Dave Ramsey, for example. In another episode, we talked about Amanda and her ketogenic cookbook, and we kind of discussed how everyone who adheres to a strict diet has kind of a sense of community or a sense of identity. And think about some examples from your own life. What are some of your interests or some things about you which you can really relate to other people in regards to? So, a good buddy of mine and a good family friend of mine was a Marine, did a couple tours over in Afghanistan, and he instantly bonds with other Marines. They have a shared experience. I think police officers and firefighters often experience the same thing. Kind of a personal one of mine. I ride a motorcycle, so I have kind of a camaraderie or kind of a brotherhood with other people who ride. That's kind of a part of a tribe I'm into. If I see another motorcycle rider having trouble on the side of the road, I'll stop and see if I can help them out. When I pass other riders, you may sometimes see when two motorcycles pass, they'll put their left hand down into the left, kind of like an upside down peace sign. It's just kind of a show of camaraderie among motorcycle riders. And my girlfriend always thinks that's kind of the coolest thing when we go for a long ride and you're passing people and they all do it to you. But the point is that we often have a connection or a tribal identity with others that we share something in common with, whether it be an interest or a shared history, like we're from the same city, we went to the same school, etc. So I think oftentimes when we are thinking about starting a business, we first think of a product to sell, or when we're thinking about a side hustle, we first think about like what product should we sell, what should our business be, and then we try to go out and find somebody to sell it to, as opposed to first finding a tribe or a group of people with a shared interest, learning about them, figuring out what their pain points are or what they want or they need, and then trying to find a product to sell to them as opposed to as opposed to first looking for a product and then trying to find an audience for that product. So identity is basically what today's side hustle story is about. Identity can be a complex thing. We share identities with strangers based on things we have in common. Again, your hometown, really anything that sets you apart from others. And even more so if what sets you apart from others puts you in a minority of the general population. I think identity is important to think about when starting a side hustle, rolling out a new product, starting a business. So today's side hustle story involves a shared identity, and that shared identity is men with long hair. Long hair is something that some men have in common, and as we just kind of alluded to, men with long hair are in a minority. Most guys have short hair. So if you're a man with long hair, it kind of gives you even more of a connection with other guys with long hair. Kind of a little bit off topic, but kind of a funny story. A while back, my girlfriend and I were going grocery shopping, and as we pulled into the grocery store, I saw another guy with long hair. And as we kind of crossed paths, I kind of jokingly said, "What's up?" and made a reference to us being Man Bun Brothers. Yeah, corny, I know. I was kind of stoned, and he looked at me like I was kind of crazy, but heck, we relate to those like us, and I just thought that was kind of a funny story to share. So today's side hustle involves two guys, Chris Healy and Lindsay Joe Bartow. By day, they own a web shop and marketing agency, but their side hustle started by creating a global community for men with long hair. So if you want to check them out, they have both a blog and a YouTube channel. One other thing I'd like to point out is that if you watch my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of content marketing. I build businesses almost entirely based off of content marketing with no paid advertising. These guys do a fantastic job of content marketing, so if you're looking for somebody to take some cues from, these guys are a great example, and you may want to check out their YouTube channel and or their blog. So Chris and Lindsay started off with a small website slash blog whose audience consisted of two people, both their mothers. Now, they gave tips about being a dude and having long hair, how to care for your hair, how to shampoo your hair, how to style your hair, what ties to use, but coming from the perspective of a man, as most, hair care tips and stuff out there is geared towards women. So pretty soon after starting, they had 50 subscribers of their blog, and within a year, that number had grown to over 1,000 email subscribers. They then took the business to the next level and decided to roll out a product. The product was going to be hair ties, with a message behind them being guys shouldn't have to steal their hair ties from their little sisters, and they shouldn't have to buy 20 packs of hair ties from Target that come with half pink hair ties in them. So they began buying elastic bands from stores like Joann Fabrics and making them on their own. However, it quickly outgrew that, and they expanded to trying to find an Alibaba supplier and getting their own hair ties made. So a kit of their hair ties sells for $12, and it includes designs featuring camouflage, shotgun shells, martini glasses, lightning bolts, and many other manly things. Their branding or their tagline says, "So cool, your girlfriend will steal them." And a few weeks after placing their first sample order with the factory, the hair ties showed up. They actually had a launch party called Long Manes and Candy Canes where they took pre-orders for the final product, and within a few weeks they got them and started selling them online and filling the pre-orders. Now, one interesting thing about how they went about launching their product, I've given a few examples of this before in other videos, but basically the idea of taking orders before your product actually exists. If you want to see more examples of this, there's a company called Sumo Jerky where a guy who's like a YouTuber, an entrepreneur, took up a challenge that his Facebook group gave him, and they basically said, look, we're going to pick a business and you have 24 hours to start, that business and make $1,000. So the couple businesses got thrown out. I've talked about this before, so you may have heard it, but he decided to settle on beef jerky, which was one of the 3 or 4 ideas that people threw out there. He posted to his Facebook group, started taking pre-orders for a beef jerky that didn't even exist, wound up getting the $1,000 and started the beef jerky company, which I think he later passed on to one of his YouTube subscribers who's still successfully running that business. But it's a way of not only vetting a business and seeing if there's an actual interest, but it also gives you a chance to get some insights into what your customers are looking for. So that may be something for some of you guys to consider. Maybe try taking pre-orders for a potential product before you actually even have the product in hand. And if you're kind of open and upfront with what you're doing, people who are into your idea probably won't mind throwing some money down on a pre-order to help you get things started. So things took a few weeks to get rolling, but it wasn't long before they were making sales. And while their sales numbers aren't huge, they tend to make at least one sale a day, obviously some days being better than others. Their biggest challenge has been not having time to put into the hustle since, they also own and run a marketing agency. And the other problem was advertising. They're finding it challenging on how to target long-haired men online. And while the business isn't the largest one we've discussed here on Side Hustle Tuesdays, they have shipped their hair ties to over 1,000 customers in over 50 states and 45 countries. They donate $1 from each sale to Locks for Love. They are organizing men, helping the community, and making a little bit of money while having fun doing it. And since they've begun this side hustle, they've also rolled out some additional products, hats, T-shirts, other kind of like merchandise and swag, swag type items that's called the Long Hairs. So there's one thing I'd like to add about these guys' story really quickly before we cut out. So earlier in the story, I talked about how a big part of their business is content that they create. Early on in their business, they committed themselves to putting out a minimum of 1 blog post per week and kept that commitment for over 100 weeks. They have a nice streak going. I guess the point is there's a lot of power there's a lot of power in building momentum and habits and routines. Whether it be working out, doing a blog post a day, if you commit yourself to doing something and do something on a regular basis, regardless of any circumstance that comes up, it becomes a streak, it becomes part of your daily routine, and it becomes something that you're going to do in day out. And it's something that I think contributes to the majority of successful people's success. So keep that in mind. What kind of streak can you start today? Whether it be a blog post, committing to do so many social media posts per day, etc. I challenge each of you guys to find something that you can kind of start your own streak, revolving around. So if you've been thinking about starting a blog, decide to put out 1 blog post a week. If you're thinking about becoming a YouTuber, commit yourself to making 1 YouTube video per week. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's story. I thought it was a fun story when it heavily revolves around content marketing, which I'm a huge proponent of. And also, I thought it was a fun story and a fun business, which I can definitely personally relate to. It's kind of funny, probably a year or more ago, I'd actually made a suggestion on one of my YouTube videos that somebody should roll out a line of men's hair ties and hairbands, as that's something that I'm personally always looking for. So if any of you guys happen to roll out a similar product to that, or something in that niche, hit me up, as I'd be happy to test it out and make a video promoting your product. Anyhow, guys, that's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, this is Rules for Rebels and Side Hustle Tuesdays, signing off.